Tonight, we open another page of the Black Salt Ledger. In a museum in Athens, behind glass, sits a corroded lump of bronze about the size of a thick book. For decades, hardly anyone looked at it twice. But hidden inside that green, sea-eaten metal is something that should not exist. A machine of more than 30 interlocking gears, cut by hand more than 2,000 years ago. A device that could track the sun, the moon, and the planets, and predict eclipses years before they happened. It is, by any honest definition, an ancient computer, and nothing else like it would be built anywhere on Earth for the next 1,000 years. The story begins not in a laboratory, but underwater. In 1901, Greek sponge divers, sheltering from a storm near a small island called Antikythera, went down to the seabed and found a wreck, an ancient ship that had gone down sometime around the 1st century before Christ. It was a treasure ship. Bronze and marble statues, glassware, coins. Among the haul they brought up was an unremarkable, calcified lump. It was set aside with the rubble and very nearly forgotten. Then months later, the lump broke open, and inside the stone-hard corrosion, someone saw something impossible for its age: the teeth of a gear wheel. Not decoration, not a coin, a precisely cut bronze gear, and behind it, the edges of more. This was not a statue or a trinket. It was the broken remains of a machine. The question that has haunted scholars ever since arrived in that moment: who, 2,000 years ago, was building machines like this? To understand why this is so startling, you have to understand the history of gears. Complex, finely toothed gear trains, the kind that drive precision clocks, are not supposed to appear until medieval Europe, well over 1,000 years later. For a long time, that was the rule. So when the Antikythera device first emerged, the natural reaction was disbelief. Surely it had fallen into the wreck later. Surely it could not really be ancient. But it could, and it was. Finding gearwork of this kind in the ancient Mediterranean is a little like opening a sealed Roman tomb and finding a pocket watch inside. The natural instinct is to call it a mistake, a later object in an older grave. Here, that instinct is simply wrong. The shipwreck itself dates to roughly the 1st century before Christ. The mechanism inside it was made earlier still, by most estimates, somewhere around 100 to 150 years before that. This was not a medieval clock that drifted onto an old wreck. It was built by Greek hands in the Greek world, more than 2,000 years ago. The impossible object was simply real. For most of the 20th century, no one could see inside it without destroying it. Then came X-rays, and finally, in the mid-2000s, high-resolution medical scanning, the same kind of CT imaging used on the human body, turned on a corroded lump of ancient bronze. Layer by layer, it revealed what was buried in the metal. More than 30 surviving gears, some with teeth barely a millimeter across, and thousands of tiny Greek letters inscribed across its faces. And slowly, the machine gave up its purpose. On its front face was a dial showing the zodiac and a calendar, and pointers that tracked the position of the sun and the moon across the sky, and, the evidence suggests, the 5 planets the ancients knew. You turned a small handle on the side, and the heavens turned with it. It was, in effect, a hand-cranked model of the cosmos as the Greeks understood it, a calculator for the sky. But the detail that stops engineers cold is the moon. The real moon does not move at a steady pace. It speeds up and slows down across its orbit. The builders of this machine knew that, and they reproduced it with bronze using a clever trick. One gear mounted slightly off-center from another, with a pin riding in a slot. So the output sped up and slowed down just as the moon does. They modeled the irregular motion of a heavenly body, mechanically, 2,000 years ago. There was even a little rotating ball, half light and half dark, to show the phase of the moon. Turn it over, and the back held 2 great spiral dials. One was a calendar tracking the 19-year cycle that brings the sun and moon back into step. The other was rarer and stranger, a dial that predicted eclipses, telling its user years in advance when the sun or moon would darken and roughly what to expect. There was even a dial that counted down to the Great Games, including the Olympics. This single device folded astronomy, the calendar, and prophecy of the sky into a box you could hold. That eclipse dial rested on a rhythm the Babylonians had measured and the Greeks inherited, the Saros, the roughly 18-year cycle, after which eclipses return in a familiar pattern. Cut into bronze, it let its owner wind time forward and read, years in advance, when a shadow would fall across the sun or the moon. And it came with instructions. Across its bronze plates run thousands of characters of Greek text, descriptions, labels, a kind of user's manual for the machine. We can read those words. We understand now broadly what the device was for. What we cannot fully recover is the mind that designed it, the chain of knowledge and craft that made such a thing possible in the first place. So who did build it? The honest answer is that we are not certain. The best clues point to the Greek scientific world of the 2nd century before Christ, perhaps the island of Rhodes, home to the great astronomer Hipparchus, whose theories of the moon are written, in bronze, into the machine itself. Others connect it to the tradition of Archimedes, who, ancient writers tell us, once built a device that modeled the heavens, a genius or a workshop of them, and then silence. Because here is the part that should unsettle us most. After the Antikythera Mechanism, nothing of remotely comparable complexity appears in the record for more than 1,000 years, not until the great astronomical clocks of medieval Europe. The knowledge to build it did not spread. It did not evolve. It simply vanished, lost in the fall of empires, the burning of libraries, the slow forgetting of the ancient world. A technology switched off for a millennium. This is why the Antikythera Mechanism matters far beyond its gears. It tells us that the ancient world was not the primitive place we sometimes imagine. People 2,000 years ago were doing precision engineering and mechanical computation, and we only know it because, by sheer chance, one example sank to the bottom of the sea and was preserved in the dark. It forces a humbling question. How much else did they know that we have simply lost? It is worth slowing down here, the way this ledger always does, because a machine this advanced invites wild claims. So let us be clear about what it is not. It is not alien. It is not magic. It is not out of place in time. It is exactly what it appears to be: brilliant, documented, human Greek engineering. The genuine mystery is quieter and far more interesting than any fantasy. Who exactly made it, how their knowledge was built, and how completely it was allowed to disappear. So this is what the record holds. A machine of bronze, turned by a hand that has been dust for 2,000 years, that could fold the motions of the heavens into a box, pulled by accident from a sunken ship, built by minds we cannot name, in a tradition that died with them, and rediscovered only because the sea kept it safe in the dark, long enough for us to learn how little we knew. The ledger doesn't close a file like this. It keeps it, beside the others, still waiting for an answer. The sea gave back a machine the ancient world wasn't supposed to have. Our next file comes from the earth and reaches back further still, to a bare hill where someone raised rings of carved stone before writing, before the wheel, before farming itself, and then deliberately buried them. Another file, already open. Follow the ledger and we'll turn the page together.